I'm so grateful for X, and for platforms that are going to allow us, right? The ability, you don't need to go through a middleman anymore. You could really go straight. Yeah, there's no middleman. There's no middleman. If you want, you could just go right on X and say, hey, look at this story. I'm going to show you. I'm going to interview this person right now here at the border. They're going to tell you what happened to them on this journey. Unlike the media, one of the world's most influential men, Elon Musk, I would say probably the most influential man, went to the border last week. And he went to the border with Congressman Tony Gonzales from Texas, from my great state, and actually brought the attention that was necessary to the crisis that we are experiencing on the U.S.-Mexico border. I mean, I have been covering this border now, and I've said this before, for nearly 20 years, if not 20. And I have never seen it this bad. I have never seen it this dangerous. I have never seen a humanitarian crisis in the United States the way I've seen it here on the U.S.-Mexico border. It is utter insanity. It's upside down. This should be a bipartisan issue. Both parties should be able to come together on this. We should be able to find solutions. But instead, the border is becoming more and more chaotic, and the Biden administration's open border policy is endangering everyone, endangering American citizens and putting our national security at risk, and endangering the lives of those that are coming across the border and being illegally trafficked. And the horror stories really, are so horrific that sometimes I can't even sleep at night. I can't even sleep thinking about what is happening to these children, thinking about what is happening to our children and our nation. And I've got to ask the question again, why? Why is the Biden administration doing this? Why has the media been so complicit, for the majority of the media, in not covering this crisis the way it needs to be covered? Until now, the attention has been drawn, and thank God. Thank God for people like Elon Musk. Thank God for Congressman Tony Gonzales. Thank God for the people I work with at Border 911, like Tom Homan, Mark Morgan, Victor Avila, all of the people that are focused on the border, that are bringing the attention to this. Guess who I have on the show today? I have Congressman Tony Gonzales. He represents these areas, Eagle Pass. He has one of the largest districts in Texas. And he was the man, the congressman, who invited and took Elon Musk to the border last week, did the live feed on X, which got worldwide attention, over 110 million views on one of their videos on what are the solutions. People want solutions. They want leadership. They want to be able to believe what they are seeing, to know that what they are seeing is truth. And Congressman Gonzales has the ins and outs, so to speak. He is going to tell us what happened behind the scenes with Elon Musk, why this is so important, why bringing Elon Musk to the border was an important moment in shaking the foundation to get the rest of the media to pay attention to this crisis, and what you and I can do to resolve this crisis with them, what we need to do, folks. But first, let me tell you about Donors Trust. According to a recent Fidelity charitable report, Planned Parenthood was the 6th most popular nonprofit among Fidelity charitable account holders last year. 6 out of nearly 200,000 unique charities. That's just unbelievable. Does that upset you? Because it upsets me. It makes me sick too. The good news is, if you have a Fidelity charitable giving account, it's not too late to roll your charitable dollars over to a giving account provider that actually shares your values and wants to do something, right, that coincides with what you believe in. And this is what's important. I want you to visit Visit donorstrust.org/Sara. That's SARA. That's donorstrust.org/Sara to learn more. Request an info packet and you'll receive a free copy of their donor prospectus. Folks, you don't have to be just putting your money into a Fidelity charitable account that doesn't stand for the values that you stand for, right? You need to do something different. Visit donorstrust.org/Sara, SARA, to receive your free copy of their donors prospectus. That's donorstrust.org/Sara to discover how you can use a giving account and help expectant mothers in your community. I love babies and they deserve to be a part of our world. Simplify, increase, and protect your donations with Donors Trust. Go to donorstrust.org/Sara. I want to thank you, Congressman Tony Gonzales, for coming on the Sara Carter Show. I'm so excited to have you on the show because you're my neighbor. You represent Texas's 23rd district. And I mean, like, we're right next door. I can't believe we haven't met before.
I know. Thanks for having on. I'm excited about it too. It's such an honor to serve in the 23rd district. So much fun. I live in San Antonio, but the district stretches all the way out to El Paso. There's 110 or 119 cities and towns. It's absolutely massive, and it's just a whole lot of fun to represent it in Congress.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. What a beautiful area you represent. I love San Antonio. You are with the Appropriations and Homeland Security Committees, and you've been with Congress for 3 years now, right? I mean, these are two major committees. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into all the fun stuff with Elon Musk and the border.
There we go. No, I really enjoy serving on the Appropriations Committee for a couple of reasons. One, it's a committee that gets all the work done. And, you know, you can talk a big game, but the dollars and cents are what matter. And when we talk about the spending, you see the $33 trillion in debt, which is so sickening. You see all these different woke programs that are sprinkled throughout the government. You know, the Appropriations Committee is a committee that can tackle a lot of that. And I'll be the first one to admit, you know, my first term, we're over here fighting for all these local projects. I'm really excited about that. We do a lot of that. But, you know, for the difference between my first and second term, I started telling my team, I'm like, look, we're going to fight for all the local projects, but I want you to give me a list of programs that we need to zero out. You know, find me the areas that shouldn't be in there. Why? And I'll give you an example. You know, why does the Department of Agriculture have a line item that they need to have all their fleet vehicles be electric vehicles by 2025? What the hell does that have to do with ag? You know, so I'm like, zero them out. You know, why? And all these other programs in there. So that's what I love about it. When you know what's going on, you can go in there with a scalpel and you can kind of take some of the junk out, protect some of the things we need. And I just really enjoy serving on that committee. And then the Homeland Security Committee, right in my wheelhouse. The district's over 800 miles of the southern border, 2/3 of the Texas-Mexico border. So Homeland Security is very important. And, you know, we always talk about the border, and we'll talk about that today. But one of the things that I think that gets missed is cyber and everything that China is doing in that space.
Right.
I'm a retired Navy Master Chief. I spent 20 years in the Navy as a cryptologist. So cyber is my expertise. And that's something I always try to bring into the equation to go, you know, while we're talking about the border, rightfully so, we also need to be having these conversations on how the hell do we protect ourselves against some of these bad actors that are trying to attack us via cyberspace.
I think you brought up such a great point. It's something that I focus on often, and it's China and the expansion of the Communist Party, its reach in our hemisphere. And I don't think we're paying enough attention to that, not just with the issue of fentanyl, but with the issues, like you said, of cyberspace, of intellectual property theft, and also the ability for the Chinese Communist Party to kind of set up shop in Latin America. I've seen it with my own eyes on trips to Guatemala and other parts of Central and South America where, you know, the Chinese Communist Party, even other adversaries have used not just the corruption in those parts of the world, but the kind of chaos we've seen in Venezuela to benefit and move forward with their agenda against the United States. And A lot of people aren't paying attention to that. And I'm really impressed with the fact that you are an expert in cyber and cryptology. That's just amazing, because that's a very difficult area.
Sara, you hit it spot on. You know, while we're over here tackling all these other things, China is very systematic in what they're doing. They're poisoning Americans, killing Americans every day with fentanyl. You know, they're stealing our intellectual property. You know, they're responsible for COVID, literally killed millions of people globally, destroyed the world economy, and they get a pass. I mean, it's just one thing after another. You mentioned, you know, their Belt and Road Initiative. They go into all these places and scooping up all these areas. I'll give you an example. This week, I met with the ambassador of Panama. And one of the things that I worry about is because the United States is void of our backyard, Central and South America, we let other actors like China and some of these other places seep in here and scoop in. And you know, all of a sudden you're going to see, as it is, there's very few countries that recognize Taiwan, and you're going to see more and more pressure from China for them to not recognize Taiwan and some of our allies. And so Panama, the example I give is, you know, the Panamanian ambassador has said, you know, I never get anyone from the administration that reaches out. And it's just absolutely shameful the way that the Biden administration has really abandoned not only Americans, not only Texans, they've abandoned, you know, the hemisphere.
Right. And it's foreign policy responsibility to the Western Hemisphere, which I think, and we're going to go right into the border now, which I think is a shame. And I think it's been a shame through multiple administrations that the failure of our government to actually understand and utilize and build on what should be the envy of the world, which I call the Western Hemisphere. Yes. You know, instead we see countries like Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico, our southern partners in South America struggling, and the U.S. isn't taking advantage of these amazing countries and trying to shift them out of this corrupt state that they're in. We should have nearshoring. We should bring manufacturing to the Western Hemisphere. We shouldn't be shipping everything over to China. And we should be paying attention to that border, which you were on with Elon Musk, by the way. And I thought it was absolutely incredible the way you were able to get the exposure on the border with him so that everybody, I think globally, was paying attention to it.
That was so much fun to do, and I was excited to do it. Sara, I've hosted over 100 members of Congress. I've hosted 20 different congressional delegations or high-level visits. And part of it is kind of what you mentioned earlier. People don't realize how big Texas is. People don't realize how diverse the border is. You know, RTV, McAllen, and Brownsville is way different than El Paso and Presidio and Del Rio and Eagle Pass. I mean, they're all just very different. And unless you go there and see it for yourself, you're not going to understand it, no matter how much. And I appreciate all the stuff that Fox and Newsmax and some of these outlets do to just push everything. It's something very different when you're there. When you see it and feel it and touch it, you cannot unsee what you've seen. So a big reason why I wanted to host Elon was Elon's a fascinating guy. I mean, he is interested in so many different things. It's not just what you always hear about. He's been getting more and more engaged on the border. I think like a lot of Americans that are going, at first they're like, oh, that's a Texas issue. No, not anymore. I mean, you're seeing everything that's happening in New York, in Chicago, in Denver, in Los Angeles. I mean, it is everywhere. And so that was a whole lot of fun to do. The biggest, probably the most fun I had was Elon's in my pickup truck. I drive an F-150, and you know, that's been part of my deal. Great. Yeah, Elon's in my pickup truck, and we're having a real conversation. And he's, you know, it's engaged, and he's asking questions, and I'm giving him factual things. And the whole purpose was this: just come see it unfiltered, and share it to the world, and let them be the judge. That video has gotten 110 million views. It's unbelievable. But I think that's the level of engagement we need if we're going to bring awareness and then ultimately solutions to this border crisis.
Yeah, I think there were multiple really important moments that happened with your border tour with Elon Musk. That car ride being one of them, and the amount of views that it actually got was stunning, because it showed, I think a lot of people were concerned, with a very good reason, the way Twitter was under Jack. And now we can see, once it's an open space where the people are able to have a voice and actually gather media information, that is tangible to them, that they can make a decision on. It was so powerful. It shows that if you put the power in the hands of the people, if you put that power in their hands, amazing things can happen. And I think, for a large part, many governments are afraid of that.
Yes. Yeah. And that was a big part of what Elon was pushing. He goes essentially citizen journalism. He's like, everyone should be able to get on this X space and, live stream whatever they want to talk about and share it to the world. And I think you're seeing a rise in that citizen journalism that just gives it unfiltered, untapped, allows people to do those type of things. And I think that's important. I mean, that's what we need to be able to share these stories and empower people. And also, by the way, people aren't getting their information the way they always have.
Oh, absolutely. I've spent more than 20 years, around 20 years covering the U.S.-Mexico border, believe it or not, since I was a really young journalist. And I've seen it from the wars with the cartels, battling it out in Nuevo Laredo and Matamoros. And, when I was in Tijuana, all the way to, I remember the Minutemen on the border and all the issues that we were faced then, even with the National Guard. So I've seen these different ebbs and flows of what was happening on the border through various presidents, as well in here as in Mexico. I've never seen it this bad. I've never seen it this bad. I want to kind of it's crazy. It's crazy. I tell people all the time, you can't understand this unless you are there to see it with your own eyes. Tell me what it was like. If you can give me a little bit, I'm not asking you to give away like any private, or maybe you can, any private conversations. Yeah. But when did it occur to you, and what happened? How was the sausage made? Basically, how did you get the guy that's going to take us to Mars, right? The man that is transforming the world. And by the way, Neuralink to me is huge because, and I'll throw that in there. My husband is blind. He was blinded in Afghanistan. And I think Neuralink is working so diligently and so hard to bring eyesight, to the blind, and working with so many other aspects of those disabilities, the ability to be able to do something that I think is revolutionary. And I think that's what Elon Musk is doing. How did you get that guy to come to the border with you? I think that's awesome.
Oh, it was incredible. And I think it's just the start. And so first, my background is a cryptologist, which is essentially my whole job, my whole career in the Navy was to collect bad guy information, decipher it, analyze it, and have an actionable item. Go kill or capture bad guys. That's what I've done my whole life. So I've always been able to think outside the box. And I am just as frustrated as many Americans that have seen this border crisis. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets worse, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. And I've hosted all these members there. Everyone's talking about it. Once again, once you see it, you can't unsee it. How can we do something different? And House Republicans, we've done a lot on there. We've passed a lot of different bills. But until something is passed into law, until there's real action, to me, it's not real, and that's what I'm fighting for, is the people that I represent. And it's not just my district, it's everywhere. But I'm looking at my district. We are just so tired and exhausted, and it's so unfair. It's completely unfair. Our lives have changed, and we just want it to end. And I'd say this district, too, is predominantly Hispanic. It's very warm and welcoming. It believes in the American dream. It believes in blue-collar America, just going out there and making it happen. And that's not what's occurring. The world's upside down, if you will. So I started going, okay, what can I do different? From a frustrated standpoint, we got to do something different. We want to get a different response. And so I started thinking on, all right, who's the person that could do that? And actually, Bill Melugin and I were having a conversation maybe a year or so ago, Bill Melugin from Fox. And I'm like, man, because Elon had just retweeted something of his and it just took off, right? And he called it the Elon effect.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the seed that initially got planted. And you know, you go in a different direction and whatnot. And then I started, you know, going through all these. I'm like, you know what? I need to bring Elon to the border. And that's easier said than done. I was so excited that he was willing to do that. You never know how the things are going to turn out. It was great to have him there. And the other part of it too was this: is when you do have an opportunity, how are you going to use your time? And I didn't want it to be monopolizing the time with him. I wanted him to talk to real people. And that's why I brought Randy Brown, the sheriff from Medina County, which is real close to us here in San Antonio. I brought the sheriff, Anthony Zartuche from LaSalle County, which is pretty close to Laredo. It's about 68 miles from there. I brought another sheriff, Mike Morris from Frio County, right along the I-35 corridor, and the local mayor. And oh, by the way, half are Democrats, half are Republicans. This isn't a Republican versus Democrat deal. I wanted, and everyone is saying is the exact same thing. And I thought, to me, that was the power in bringing it. It's like not some politician that's trying to sell you on something. It's some guy that's bringing Elon down. And that's so thought that it made it very powerful, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat to hear that. I love Bill. Bill, I run into him at the border all the time. We're both on Fox. He's a colleague. I think he does such an extraordinary job at reporting what is going on at the border daily. And I agree with you. I think bringing both sides, both parties to the table is what is important here. And I can't even understand, Congressman, how it's not a bipartisan issue. I think it's becoming more of one now, but I can't even understand how anyone, Republican or Democrat, Independent, Green Party, Libertarian, can't just be like, okay, what we're seeing at the border is absolutely a crime, one, against humanity. Children should not be exposed to the kind of horrors that they've been exposed to, or people. And two, it is a national security risk to our nation. Yes. And we don't even have the resources to handle it. I don't know why that couldn't have been like at the forefront. I mean, and I believe in immigration reforms and policies and all of that should come in the future. But why not secure the border? You know, why not do that?
That's exactly right. And you know what? There was no daylight between any of these people. They all represent different parts of the district. They all have different roles. They all have different political backgrounds, but there was absolutely no daylight in it. And I've always thought that was the most powerful thing that I could offer, is being like, I'm giving you unfiltered, I essentially called these guys up. I know them all really well. And I go, hey, I can't, you saw the tweet that Elon may be coming. I can't tell you when or where or how, but if, can you be ready on a 6-hour notice? And they're all like, yeah, we're in. And so it wasn't me like, oh, here's the questions I want you to ask him. Like, it was real. And I think that was the powerful part of it. Let me share a couple stories, because I think this is important. So Elon flew into the airport in Eagle Pass, and I'm waiting for him there. And the guy that's in charge of the airport is going, he knows me, and he's like, oh, hey, Tony, how you doing? This, that, and the other. And I've been waiting on him. And he goes, hey, I don't know who's coming in, but he's flying a G650. And I don't know planes, but he goes, I'm like, is that a good one? And he's like, that is the top of the line. So whoever the hell you got coming in is a big guy. And he gave me an example. He goes, Governor DeSantis came in a couple months ago, and he only was in a G400. And so I thought that was
only a G400.
Only, I know. I'm over here. I'm over here in an F-150, And when Elon landed, I go, you're going from a G650 to an F-150. And you know what? It was just a real day. And he wanted to share it. He was very open about it. I thought that was a lot of fun.
He was so excited.
He was.
He was so excited. I want to play a clip because I want to get your reaction to because he was, what I thought was really great was that it wasn't just you giving a tour. It was you and him together, just talking like regular folks, like me when I'm down at the border or just, and really explaining to him what was going on. And you allowed him and obviously I think that's so important. You stood back and you said, go ahead and you let him just talk. And it was his reaction to what he was seeing that was so powerful. Play that clip, Cal. So maybe the congressman will react to it right after.
Obviously Elon here. I'm at Eagle Pass, just arrived. And we're just going to go around and talk to the major officials and law enforcement and whatnot that are here and just kind of eyeball the situation, get a sense for what's going on, and so you can get the kind of the real story.
I love that. So you can get kind of the real story because he's just I don't want to hear it anymore from these media outlets. I want to see it for myself and then bring it directly to you.
Yeah. And what I loved about it, once again, why Elon? We've done all these other visits, why Elon? He's a problem solver. And what's interesting too, Sarah, after, it's been a week since this visit, all these people have reached out, very positive, saying, thank you for bringing attention to what's happening. That video is 110 million views. People that have seen it, that have never kind of seen it in that form or fashion. But one of the other things that I'd kind of remind everyone, a lot of people that have reached out have said, and I've shared this with him, but have shared, hey, when you talk to Elon, thank him for Starlink because now, I'm in rural Indiana and now I have access to Netflix, right? So it's not just about the border. It's how do we find these problem solvers that are in our society? And how do we give them the most complex problems that we have? And how do we fix them?
Human Super Beets. I'm so excited to talk to you all about this. Why? Because I believe in heart health. I believe that it is important for us to take care of our hearts. Very important because my mother had heart disease. And that is something that I never, ever want to have happen again. Not to me, not to my children. And in fact, more than half of the U.S. population would benefit from better blood pressure support. That's how serious this is. Paired with a healthy lifestyle and antioxidants in Super Beets are clinically shown to be nearly 2 times, listen to this, more effective at promoting normal blood pressure than healthy lifestyle alone. With my busy schedules, Super Beets Chews are a quick and convenient way to do something that's good for my heart. They taste great and they give me the peace of mind about my health and overall wellness. Supporting healthy blood pressure comes with a bonus. Super Beets Heart Chews support healthy circulation, so you not only get blood pressure support, you also get productive heart healthy energy without the crash. Double your potential with Super Beets Heart Chews. Get a free 30-day supply of Super Beets Heart Chews. And listen to this, 15% off your first order by going to getsuperbeets.com and using promo code Sara, S-A-R-A. That's getsuperbeets.com, promo code Sara.
And what I thought was interesting with Elon is when I'm giving him some of the data that you're done so well covering, the amount of people coming over and what happens with them and, all the horrific things that are occurring and just the raw stuff. And I tell him, if there's 5,000 people in the processing center right now, 2,500 are coming over a day. And I go, and 0 are getting deported that do not qualify for asylum. He goes, 0? No one? I go, no one. He goes, well, that's it, So an administration can talk all day long about securing the border, but when the number is 0, numbers don't lie. And I think that was something that stood out.
Yeah, I just returned and I absolutely agree with you. I was in San Diego, California. I've been to Chicago. I'm heading to Colorado next week, all over the country because I spend a lot of time at the border and I've I've witnessed this so much for so many years. This is the worst. I mean, this last month, September, I think we saw over 260,000 people crossing the border. But while I was in San Diego, I ran into a couple on the street that just walked out of the hotel we were housing them in. And I'm talking about the federal government through NGOs. It was the Crown Plaza. Every single Border Patrol station was packed to maximum capacity. There were over 11,000, they think around 12 to 14,000 people that they had let in. This is in San Diego, where there's a border fence that is a double layered, massive wall, but the federal government's letting them in and nobody's being deported. And the two Venezuelan people that I spoke with, they told me, they said, well, one, Biden's letting them in. The administration's letting them in. They said they were surprised that there was nothing set up for them. Like they thought they would come here and find jobs right away. They didn't know that they were going to be locked down in some hotel. And they were told that if you walk out of the hotel, you can't come back. And when they walked out, they were on the streets. They didn't have any place to go eat. They were asking me if I knew where a church was that could give them a rest and a place to eat. I could not believe the policy and how the president is doing this. And this is the reason why there are so many people coming in from China, Haiti, North Africa, West Africa. I mean, everywhere in the world, right? Everywhere. It's this policy.
You're spot on. And this doesn't end. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And that's what I was relaying to Elon. I'm going, here, look, I was in Eagle Pass on Friday, and these were the numbers. And it was, 10,000 people had come over, 2,000 that day in Eagle Pass alone. And then I was like, I was here again on Monday. I hosted a congressional delegation. All these members came down, and it had gotten worse. It had, another historic one. And here we are on Thursday, and it's gotten worse. So I go, one of the things I mentioned him. So fast forward 2 years and tell me where we're going to be. And I'll go back to a couple of different meetings I had with ambassadors this week. The ambassador of Panama said 2 years ago, there were 1,000 people that would enter his country illegally. Last year, there were 240,000 people that entered illegally. He goes, this year, we're on pace for 700,000 people to enter illegally. The numbers keep multiplying. Costa Rica, I met with a Costa Rican ambassador, and she goes, Tony, we're in a state of emergency because Costa Rica is a little different. They offer free health care. They're very warm and welcoming to a lot of these people. We're completely overwhelmed. So back to your point, so many people are upset. Americans are upset because they don't feel safe and they don't feel it's fair that their taxpayer dollars are going to help all these different people. Like, what about us? What about our homeless? What about our people that have mental health issues? What about our people without jobs? What about the people that are, what about the poor suckers that are blue collar Americans following the law, busting their butt, trying to keep their family safe, but yet Biden's inflation is crushing them, but yet someone who comes over illegally gets it's all unfair, and that's where it needs to stop.
Well, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, when you were talking to Elon, and I heard, and I loved the fact that you guys talked about solutions, but when he saw the amount of people under the bridge, when he looked at that, what was the impression that you got from him when he was just witnessing these just massive amounts of people, these waves of humanity that were in the United States? I mean, it's shocking because you have to, I guess I would think Elon had to have thought to himself, well, then what is the purpose of allowing this to happen? And what is the purpose of this continuing for an administration that wants open borders? I mean, did he even get there with you? Did you guys discuss that? Because this is the policy.
We did. And it reminds me of, how anytime you've covered a story where you've heard about it over and over again, you have all the details, you may have the facts as you know them, but then when you go and you're on scene and you let's say you interview someone that has been sexually harassed or that has lost a family member, it changes, I'll give you an example. The Tambunga family, they're from Ozona, Texas, about 100 miles from the border. And there was a high-speed chase maybe about 2 months ago or so that came through this small West Texas town. and it killed the grandmother and the granddaughter. They had just come back from a play date. And we hear these stories all the time where these Americans that were impacted. Well, when I met with the Tambunga family and you're looking them in the eye and they're telling you their story and you're hearing from the mother that lost her mother and her daughter, like, it changes. And that's what I saw with Elon. You know, you see it, you see the images, you talk about the numbers, but when you see it, when you're there and you're going, holy smokes, this is real, it takes it to a different level. And then you kind of go through these emotions where then you start getting upset, right? You're going like, who in their right mind think this is okay? Who in their right mind think this is normal and okay? And then you start going, well, why? And I point back to, this is about money. And a lot of things go back to money or power. And I think the Biden administration have thought this was a political problem. They could solve it by just blaming Democrats. Well, that cat's out of the bag. That's no longer the case. You got the mayor of New York City going down to Central America to figure things out. You got the governor of New York just going, this is crazy. So it's no longer ours versus these. The money piece is the part that's sickening.
The money piece is the part that's sickening. And the whole point of the Biden administration's policy does nothing more than aid and abet the drug traffickers and the human traffickers. I was in El Salvador and I was stunned after doing an interview with a smuggler that was telling me that the reason he had come to talk to me through sources that I knew, and you know, they just can't walk away from the job. They're not going to walk away from the cartels. You get killed. He said, look, I know that a lot of the kids that were moving through to Mexico into the United States, they're disappearing. Some of them are being sold into sex trafficking rings. Other children are literally being killed for their organs. And we know that a lot of these children, these indigenous children that come from the mountains in Guatemala, that come from the mountains in El Salvador and Nicaragua, that don't have any paperwork, there's no proof of even their existence. These are the children that are crying for our help. These are the children. And I don't understand. And I'm so grateful for you and Elon Musk. I really am, because it makes me want, it almost makes me want to cry, because after seeing what I've seen, how is it that our government continues to allow it to happen? And you can fly to Panama, and I'm so grateful that you did, but you did the most important thing. You came to our border and you made a statement. And just like others that I've worked with in the past that have done the same, you say, all we have to do is shut this down. Let's shut this down first. Let's keep the cartels from making their money and the human traffickers. And let's start talking with our partners to the south, right? And holding them accountable too. And we just haven't done that. So
we have to use it. And this is where I think we have to use every tool we possibly can now, because this is only getting worse. And the numbers say it. They multiply and multiply and multiply. At some point, you got to draw a line in the sand and say, you know what? No more. You know what I mean? Like, now is the time, because it is unsustainable for our country. It's tragic for everyone that this thing touches. Whether you're, someone coming over illegally or whether you're American, I mean, everything it touches.
The fentanyl cases,
exactly.
100,000 plus deaths.
Exactly. I have visited hundreds of places. I told you, I've hosted 20 different CODELs and delegates. You name it. I've been every part of this thing. The very, very first place I went to was in Carrizo Springs, which is in my district. Maybe about an hour from the border, right around there. And there's an unaccompanied children facility there. And I show up, and it's all these young boys, and they all say they're coming to visit their uncle. I mean, every single one of them. I'm coming to visit my uncle. I'm going to Chicago. It didn't make any sense then. And I'm trying to shine a light on it. And I'm going, if anything, the children, I think, is the thing that could pull us together. We can fight over all these different things, but children are literally the most innocent thing that we have in this world. And whether they're, their legal status or not, we have to protect the children. And that's what I think we need to focus on. I go back to what can we do? And it killed me to do this, because I sit on the appropriations. I believe in our government being funded. I believe in all these different things. But one of the things that I voted against the CR a few days ago, a week ago. I mean, it feels like a year ago. In politics, it's been so dang much that's happening. But this continuing resolution that I had, and the reason I voted, there was, I think, 91 of us. The reason I voted no is there was nothing in there for real border security solutions. Now, I didn't want to see the government shut down and all these people be impacted, but I also don't want this border crisis to continue endlessly. That's the point where I'm at, and that's the point where I'm trying to get other people to come to the table. And I visit with senators, Republicans and Democrats. I visited with the administration to go, I'm not talking everything we want. I believe in the wall. I believe in all these other things. I'm not saying this or nothing. I'm saying we have to do something to make this stop. And what I think that something is pretty damn simple. Enforce the laws, meaning you don't qualify for asylum. Don't send them to New York. Don't send them to other places. You send them back to the country of origin. You do that. You deport people.
You put people on a plane.
Yes.
You put them on a plane and you send them back home. You put them on a plane and you send them back home. That is the only way to get the message to the rest of the world. And they are, did that ever come up in your conversation with Elon? Did you guys talk about the human traffickers privately, the cartels, how dangerous the situation is, how they are advertising basically to these migrants all over the world that the United States wants them? And then the second part to that, going back to the CR, I think awesome. I congratulate you for being one of the people to stand up for America and for Americans and to say, no, we are not going to sign this until we fix this problem at the border. Do you think that the White House is actually pressured enough now that they will have to do something?
Back to the first one, the Elon question, we did have a more in-depth conversation. I mean, clearly not everything I've shared and nor will I share, but it was a kind of a human element to it. Now that you've seen it, now that we've talked about it, let me tell you some of the stories, how this impacts what happens. And so we shared some of those things, and you could see it just like everyone else, that you just get frustrated with it and saddened by it, disgusted with it, all these emotions to go, well, how can we allow this to continue? And the word he kept using, and it's one that I use, it's unsustainable. And so that's the part that I think it was very powerful about the visit. And him and I stay in contact very frequently, and we're going to continue to. This isn't you don't just do one thing and all of a sudden it's solved. You have to continue to mine at it and until you can get it over the finish line. I will say, I think the administration, while they're dug in, there are things that they're trying to do to fix it, mainly because this is all about winning 2024. Winning the election, and I get that. Yeah. But you know what? At this point, I just need them to do something. Just recently, honestly, it's been happening, but it got a little bit more publicity lately as they've started to fill in some of the gaps of the wall. And guess what? Walls work, right? Go to Israel and you'll realize walls work. Do you need more than that? Yes.
I was there.
I mean, it just does. I mean, think back to it. Not alone. You need to have people behind it, and you need to have technology. And also, I'd also say this too. I'm a proponent of legal immigration. I want to encourage those to come over legally. I think that's the American way. You should have an opportunity at that. And so I'm not saying, we don't want you here, you're not welcome. I'm just saying come through the legal route like everyone else is through the history of our country. And so I do think the administration is pressure cooked. What I've tried to do is, how do I turn the heat up as much as possible? And bringing Elon to the table and having people see it, I think, is important. Last thing I'll say too is, I don't just go on Fox. I mean, I call them away games. I'll go on CNN. I'll go on NBC. I'll go on CBS. Not necessarily the most friendly networks. And I say the exact same thing whether I'm on Newsmax or whether I'm on MSNBC. I try to just go unfiltered, untapped. Does this look like an orderly, humane process to you?
I think that's so important. And I think that speaking to Americans on multiple platforms is the best way to get that message across. And I think a lot of people do themselves a disservice by only staying on one platform. You know, I mean, I think that being able to talk to people through CNN, through MSNBC, through all the but most importantly, I think what we've discovered, and it's very sad, it's the times that we live in, is that our media, everyone to blame in the media, has become not the objective truth teller always that it needs to be. And I'm so grateful for X, you know, and for platforms that are going to allow us, right? The ability, you don't need to go through a middleman anymore. You could really go straight. Yeah, there's no middleman. There's no middleman. If you want, you could just go right on X and say, hey, look at this story. I'm going to show you. I'm going to interview this person right now here at the border. They're going to tell you what happened to them on this journey. Or I'm going to talk to a mom who lost her child from fentanyl. You know, and I was in an event in Washington, D.C., and you could see the pain that parents were going through, saying, please, somebody listen to us. And now you have Elon, and I'm so excited about this because let me ask you this. I think he's going to continue to make this an important part of his life, like to focus on the border. I mean, if he asks you to go back to the border, are you ready to go back and do more at the border with him? What do you think?
And you know what, you 100%.
That's exciting.
And you get this more than anyone, I think, because just how much time you've spent on it. There is so much more to the border and border communities than what we're talking about and seeing right now. And there's just so much. There are beautiful places. It's a place where things get interconnected, and I would love to spend more time talking about that and talking about, you know, the wonderful parts of it, how people go over to Mexico and you know, how the cultures are mixed and how just like the food and just all these other wonderful things, the people that'll give their shirt off their back to help you and how many people believe in God and faith is so important to them. I mean, there's so many beautiful parts of the border that I think are not talked about. So I think there's an opportunity. And then talk about technology. You know, I think that's one of the things Elon has tried to do is how do you infuse technology to make people's lives better? I think back to, you know, my comment earlier on Starlink, you know, welcome to the 21st century. And here people have access to Wi-Fi. You know how important it is to have access to just the internet and you know, these rural communities. And I firmly believe there is a growing divide in America between urban and rural America. And it's getting further and further. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin or who you pray to. It's just this divide. And if we can find a way to infuse that in, you know, Elon and other of these tech areas to infuse it in a positive way, you know, not dictate us from a government standpoint that we should or should have. And I think that's what you're trying to allude to. The freedom. How do we just be free to listen to who you want to listen, share what you want to share in a manner that's productive, not tear our society down? But I think it's all very exciting.
Oh, I'm so excited about that. And there were so many little things that you brought up in there. And yes, you're absolutely right. Border communities are amazing communities. There's so much that we can learn. And I would like to bring you back on to talk about that in particular, because I think a lot of people don't understand that. And I think a lot of people have a misconception about the Hispanic community in the United States of America and the Latino people, the Hispanic people, you know, and the generations of Tejanos and Americans that have lived here for maybe more than most people, like forever, that have lived in California and Texas. We're a strong, liberal yet conservative community that believes in God, that has values that are based on the fundamental principles that our founding father believed in. And it's not about one party. It's a move. There is a movement shifting, right, Congressman? And you could see more and more Hispanic people waking up and saying, well, wait a minute. No, you don't speak for me. You don't speak for my family. I'm listening to Tony, or I'm listening to so-and-so. You don't speak for me. Just because you're a Democrat or just because you're this doesn't mean you represent me.
You are spot on. And I tell these pundits all the time that try to go, oh, are Hispanics becoming more Republican because X, Y, or Z? I go, first off, we are so diverse. There's a big difference from being Cuban American and Puerto Rican American and being Mexican American or Colombian American. It's just, we're a very diverse community to begin with. But in my district, predominantly, I'm Mexican American and everyone is predominantly Mexican American. And what I tell folks is, Eagle Pass, which is Maverick County, I was the first Republican to win that county, I think in 200 years or something insane like that, maybe ever. It's some ridiculous number. And once again, it's like, it's not because I'm a Republican or because this, that, or the other. It was because I always just show up in my pickup truck. People call me, I bring people down. And so what I say is, yes, the Democratic Party has left a lot of these people with their really crazy, extreme, late-term abortion and just wokeism and all this other stuff. Yes, they've done that. But it's not as if the Republican Party has won them all over. They're jump balls. They're going, I'm going to be for the person that does for me. Now, as a Republican, I think there's an opportunity for us. But don't be that guy that shows up 2 weeks before the election and puts an ad in Spanish and says, you should vote for me because we're the same. We have to change the way we do things. And I think it's an exciting time just to see the Hispanic community have a larger say in things, if you will. And I think it's a way. I think it's positive, but it's really fun to represent this district. It's also very challenging too.
I think it's awesome. I'm so excited for all the work that you're doing. I can't wait to see what other projects and trips you have coming up in the future. Always keep me in mind. I'd love to join you. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for exposing what is happening on the border to the whole world and taking, I think, in my opinion, and maybe in many others, one of the most influential men of our time, people of our time, to a place that I believe we need to be paying attention to. The whole world is watching what is happening to the United States. And I think all of us as Americans, we are praying that, and I believe we'll come out of this ahead if we do the right thing. And that's listening to people like you, and that's listening to ourselves and taking it upon ourselves to be leaders and speaking out against the atrocities that we're seeing. I don't think you could have done it any better, Congressman. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, and you are always welcome back.
Well, I'd love to come back. Thank you again, Sarah, for having me. The Elon trip was just the beginning. And once again, we got to fight with everything we have to make sure some of these things become real and this border crisis gets under control. But thank you again for having me. Can't wait to get on next time.
Thank you, Congressman Gonzales, for your service to our nation in the military and being a voice and a leader on the issue of our border. It's very important that we all join together, that we work together to bring attention to this critical and very important issue that has affected all of our lives. And I want to say thank you to Elon Musk for taking the time to actually pay attention to an issue that all Americans are concerned about, and for drawing attention to this in a bipartisan way and getting that truth out there on your platform. Elon, you are a superstar. You're a hero in my book, and you will go down in history as one of the most influential people on the planet. Thank you again for everything that you do for humanity. Follow me on Truth at Sarah Carter Official, on X at Sarah Carter DC, and on Instagram at S Carter DC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless the great state of Texas, and God bless our government, that they will finally, hopefully, one day find a way to come together to resolve the issues that affect all of us. And if they don't, guess what? We're going to hold their feet to the fire. See y'all soon.